Hi everyone, this is Arthi from Human Chapters. I'll tell you a little bit about human chapters. Humans are living narratives with a past, present, and future. These narratives constitute of a number of chapters across a lifespan. The aim of these conversations is to highlight a chapter of the narrative and unpack its connections to other chapters. I don't care whether people are natural storytellers, but I truly do believe each one of us has a worthy story to share. Acknowledgement to country. We acknowledge the traditional owners and custodians of the land on which we are. We pay respect to their tribal elders past and present and emerging. We celebrate their continuing culture and we acknowledge the memory of their ancestors. Today, we're talking to Shane, and his chapter is titled The Understanding and Acceptance of Me. I'll pass it on to Shane to introduce himself. Go for it.
I'm Shane, so I am a disability support worker. I've been in the industry for about 8 years now, and I am an artist in my side hustle. So so that's me in a very quick nutshell. Yeah.
Beautiful. So Shane, tell us, first of all, why did you select this as the title and where did your journey begin?
So this is it's been an ongoing journey, I guess, for me. But with like COVID, I guess it's been magnified a lot of my journey to this time, I guess. So a lot of things have happened in the last 2 years, in life in general, around relationships, friendships, figuring out who I am as a person.
Yeah.
So I think the title kind of sums me up pretty well, and I guess my ongoing journey, because it's going to be a life journey, trying to figure out who I am and getting to know me, because as humans, we always change and we're always developing to become someone different or someone new. So yeah.
Yeah. So I suppose one of the things I would be interested in is what sort of, so say this chapter is COVID related, for instance,
Yep.
what started off your deep insights, whether it was relationships. So yeah, tell us a little bit
Yeah.
more.
So relationship wise, so I was married up until probably 6 months. Going through a separation now, so about 6 months. And I guess um, since like the lockdowns and stuff in Victoria,
Mm.
it magnified a lot of issues around us as a couple. So so it's just one of those things. I think we grew apart as a couple, and we're just on different life journeys. We'd been together for 10 plus years. And yeah, I think that was the start of kind of figuring out who I wanted to be as well. And I think she was on the same boat. We were just trying to figure out who we were as humans. And it got us to this spot where we weren't meshing together on our journeys. So that was the start of my progress of starting to figure myself out.
Yeah.
Um, yeah.
So COVID related. So Shane, with marriage and stuff, now, by the way, feel free to decline any of the questions if you're
Yeah,
uncomfortable
of course. Yep.
with them. But with, I suppose, getting married or the start of that, was it something you wanted to do, or was it, was it a bit of a societal trajectory of sorts? How did
Um,
that start off for you guys?
Well, I guess we always kind of ran to our own beat. So we didn't really feel too pressured culturally. So she was Italian, I'm Sri Lankan. So
Yeah.
I guess our family background is quite important, and I guess can be quite pushy at certain times.
Yeah.
It never was a major issue. I think it just got to a stage where we're like, let's just get married. So we had a very small wedding. We eloped in Bali.
Yeah.
So we didn't have much family and stuff there. But yeah, I guess in a way, society kind of expects you to get married.
Yeah.
Um, and yeah, it got to, I think we only got married in 2018, so that was, I don't know, after 7 years of being together.
Yeah.
um yeah, it just kind of got to that stage where we thought we'd just make the full commitment.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
so then during COVID, what
Yeah.
actually started happening, or how did that journey unfold for you guys? Obviously being very
Yeah.
mindful of your situation currently, but yeah, trying to understand.
So we both found ourselves obviously quite, so with the lockdowns, it was, we were in each other's space quite a lot. So my ex was working from home a lot of the time.
Yeah.
And then, so I was still working outside of home,
Mm.
but just kind of coming home and just being in each other's spaces. Um, it got a bit overbearing, I guess, for both of us. And then I guess what happened is it became an expectancy kind of thing of like, if I'm around you, that we need to like communicate or we need to do things together. Um, which, I guess in before post pre-COVID, that wasn't like, you'd kind of do your own social stuff or you'd go do your own kind of recreational stuff and not rely on each other so much. Where I found with the lockdowns, because everything was closed, everything was, we couldn't even barely see family.
Yeah.
um we were just kind of so reliant on each other, and it obviously got to breaking point really.
Yeah.
So, but in saying that, we all, before COVID and all that, we were having our problems as well. So I think it really just magnified and probably fast tracked the process really for both of us. So, and I think a lot of couples have probably gone through that same kind of, pressure cooker situation where they found themselves stuck with each other really. So,
Yeah, that's what I
yeah.
was actually wondering. And particularly in Melbourne, where you guys have had, like, I suppose, the most lockdowns actually in the world. And
Yeah, well, it was 300 something days, I think, into like over the 2 years.
so,
So,
yeah, like literally close to a year worth of lockdowns. And
yeah,
to be, yeah, to be faced with existing issues, but like now it's a constant without any buffers, or sort of
yeah,
like breathing space or thinking space. That would be really, yeah, how many other people are in a similar situation?
yeah, definitely. And in our case, we're a little bit lucky, so we didn't have children or anything like that. But it would be very hard when you've got, children involved, or even cultural backgrounds or the stigma of,
Yeah,
getting separated or divorced. So
yeah,
there's a lot of factors involved with that stuff. So,
absolutely. And so, so sort of transitioning from lockdowns to issues being quite magnified to then the
mhm,
actual separation. What
yeah.
what that been like, the actual separation, and then post separation when you've started, I suppose, rediscovering yourself,
Um,
your
I
identity?
think to a certain extent, we got to a stage where w- probably like last year, we were very much broken. So we were kind of on that path of self-discovery. So in my case, yeah, I was on my path of self-discovery and just figuring out myself. It took me a long time to kind of, I guess, feel comfortable in my own skin, feel comfortable with who I am as a person. I've kind of always kind of struggled with like mental health and suicidal ideology growing up. So kind of getting to understand that a bit more self, especially the last year, um, has been interesting. So, yeah.
So, what things have you sort of engaged in order to understand yourself? If that makes
I've really just put so in the art field,
yeah,
I've really started to put myself out there with that kind of stuff. So up until I had never exhibited my art before. So I'd been drawing since I was 15, 16 years old. So,
Yeah.
and now being 32.
Yeah.
So at 30, 31, I started exhibiting, which was a really big thing for me because I just, not that I didn't have confidence with my art, I just didn't know how people were going to interpret it. And that was my biggest issue. What other people thought, which I've now come to learn by exhibiting it. It really shouldn't matter what other people think about my art because it's what I'm giving to the table, kind of thing. So
Yeah.
people can interpret it the way they want to interpret it. And I've had a lot of positive feedback from it, which is really good. It's kind of been very humbling, the amount of feedback I've got from it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and exposure from it as well. So I've kind of, with my first exhibition, it led to another one, and it's kind of just tumbled along, which is really good. Yeah, it's kind of just brought a bit of what's the word? What is the word? Well, anyway, I feel appreciated with my art, which I've never really had that before. So yeah.
Absolutely. And so so you've used that sort of discovery period to explore more of yourself as an artist and um, put exhibitions out there. Um,
Yep.
has there been other things you've discovered about yourself, whether it's been through art or through anything else in the
Yeah.
process?
Well, I guess so with my mental health stuff, I've started to explore it a lot more and try to figure myself out a little bit more. So
Yeah.
um, the last year, maybe year and a half, I had to see a psychologist and a psychiatrist for a certain amount of time just to figure out some things growing up, if they kind of were, I guess, with the psychiatrist, if they were kind of related. I mentioned prior to the chat that I don't think I'd read a book before. So um,
Yeah.
yeah, so trying to figure out like things like that, if there was some underlining stuff growing up, um, and just trying to figure it all out because I guess growing up there wasn't a lot of resources out there
Hmm.
um, to, I guess, discover that stuff. A lot of people probably went under the radar,
Yeah.
not reading a book, and probably finishing high school somehow. Yeah, so, and that was me.
Yeah. So with mental health difficulties,
Yeah.
when did they start for you, or when did you start becoming aware of them?
So I've had mental health since I was 16,
Yeah.
but I really didn't understand it probably up until I was about 28, I reckon. Um, I kind of, I guess I just didn't really educate myself around it. I didn't seek treatment for it. I kind of just coped with it.
Yeah.
So I mentioned suicidal ideology before. That has been a real common occurrence with me for a long time, and I really never talked to anybody about it.
Yeah.
I never really mentioned it. I just kind of went through it in my head,
Yeah.
and I think it got to a stage where I was at a breaking point where I was just feeling really down, and I probably so was not close to actioning, but to a certain state, it was higher than what it would normally be because with my suicidal ideology, it would be pretty free. It would be weekly. I would be thinking a suicidal thought, and it couldn't just come out randomly. It could be having a great day, and it could come out, kind of thing. So I guess when I started talking to my psychologist about it, we started working on strategies on, I guess, how to manage that because it seemed like it was going to be a lifelong management of that for me.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, so I just still find it amazing that I went 12 years kind of hiding that. Um, and I guess, yeah, like especially the last year, I've talked to a lot of people about my mental health um, and mentioned this suicidal stuff, because I had definitely never mentioned that to my friends, or even my mum. Actually, I only mentioned it to my mum probably about 2 or 3 months ago, and I guess, not to worry your mum, it's not the greatest, but to have that off your chest, to be able to tell your parent,
Yeah,
that's what's been going on. That was a big thing for me, actually. So
absolutely. I have a couple of questions just with
yeah,
what so mental health is quite a broad terminology,
yes,
massive umbrella term. What was it specifically for you, like that you at the age of 28 started becoming aware of?
yeah,
That yeah, question number one, and then second one very much be related to when you did have that open conversation with your mum. What was that like? And I know they're very loaded questions, but
yeah. Um, so why did it? I think it just got to a stage. So I think with my ex, it was obviously taken effect on our relationship as well. So she had it would have been around her having a conversation with me to seek some help. I'm very grateful for now, because the psychologist I found is amazing, and he's very respectful and understanding of where I'm coming from.
yeah.
Um, yeah, so I feel like when I was 28, I was going through a really tough year,
Mm,
a lot going on, um, and so that was the year that we had got married. So we had our troubles before we had got married as well. So I think that was probably one of the factors, um, where I had started seeing someone. And I guess it was
mm,
probably around the time where they really started promoting mental health, like on the TV and the news, social media. So it was actually, yeah, I think it just made me a lot more aware that I'm not alone in this situation. Um, yeah, so
abs-
that's what kind of started that movement of me figuring that out. So
yeah. And
yeah,
then the conversation with your mum.
with my mum, yeah. So yeah, that was, so me and my parents have had a very toxic, kind of, not toxic, I guess we lack in communication.
Yeah.
Um so we don't really talk about our feelings. And feel like when I had talked about my feelings previously, it was kind of like, oh, you'll be okay, like, let's move on. So my parents are both Sri Lankan, so I guess, you know, they've kind of been raised, I guess, the tough way, and you know, things don't bother them that much.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, having that conversation with my mum, I guess it came after like the breakup, and so I've always found it really hard to communicate with my parents.
Yeah.
Um, so I just felt that I needed to explain that to her, so she understood that where I was coming from, because I guess they were quite worried about me after the breakup, because I wasn't really talking to them. Um, and when we would catch up, so we'd be going to the dog park. That was basically our catch up, and it would just be a walk around the dog park, but we wouldn't talk.
Yeah.
So I think bit the bullet one day, and I'm like, I'm just going to tell her. And I guess that kind of opened up our relationship in a weird way, because like even like now we actually talk a lot more than what I probably ever have with my parents. Well, up until high school. So obviously when I was in high school, we kind of dropped communication. But yeah, so
Yeah.
in a weird, like, I guess, turn of events, it's kind of become a positive, because it's,
Yeah.
I guess, opened up our relationship, because there's an understanding around it, because they probably didn't know, like, as in, and they probably just thought I was being rude when I wasn't talking to them. But yeah, I think there's a bit more understanding around it for my parents. Yeah.
Right. And I think, Shane, to some extent, like coming coming from an ethnic background myself,
Yeah.
so I'm a Kenyan Indian roots.
Yeah.
My great grandparents and grandparents
Oh,
migrated
nice. Yeah.
from India to Kenya, and the mental health and all of that within the family was a very stigmatized topic. And if there are any huge emotions or feelings people are experiencing, it's usually, you don't talk about it, you try and suppress it. And if you do talk about it, it's a very brief conversation. It's not really not naturally nurtured or sort of
Yeah.
opened up and having a bit of a dialogue around it. But that has been a generational sort of interconnection, or that upbringing. Oh, why are you talking about it? You don't know, or those sort of statements like, you don't know how easy you have it, or you don't know, like everything is at your fingertips. You can, whatever you want is there, sort of a thing, but not realizing the different contexts and different experiences that every individual in those different generations are actually having. So was it similar to your sort of upbringing and that cultural stigmatization?
Um, like I said, growing up, like, so my parents aren't, I wouldn't say strict, strict Sri Lankan. So they're not your traditional kind of, you need to go study, become a doctor kind of thing.
Yeah,
Um, but yeah, I guess around the mental health stuff, and I guess health in general, because like, yeah, my parents will not seek treatment unless they're going to die. Yeah, so talking about mental health, it's like talking about an invisible illness to
yeah,
them. So it's like, it's not there. So for them to kind of understand that, I think there's also been a little bit more understanding around that for them, because I think we've got some family members that have come out with some mental health stuff,
yeah.
and they haven't really talked about it up until maybe a couple of years ago as well. So I think for them, there's a lot more chat about it, where yeah, they came from a culture where that is an invisible illness and it probably doesn't exist. So yeah.
That's right. Okay, that is so interesting. And I just, keep sort of reflecting on what you are saying and connecting it to, I suppose, my experiences of even opening the dialogue of mental health. Like now within
Yeah.
the family, I feel like I'm happy to have a conversation about, I think, any topic now. It doesn't
Okay. Yeah.
how heavy the topic is or how light, and particularly with something like human chapters. It's talking to anyone in the world, and it doesn't matter what their chapter is. It's having a
Yeah.
conversation about it, and that has actually been such a blessing and a gift in disguise, where it allows me to tell my mom, oh wait, today I'm having a conversation with this person, and this was really interesting. Like it just opens up. It's a conversation starter. It's something where, did you ever experience it? Like a pure curiosity kind of question. And it's so interesting with how, her being 67 now, sort of being
Yeah.
open to, oh my goodness, wow, this is quite interesting. Well, how did they figure it out? So she is actually genuinely being
Oh,
curious.
that's really cool.
And
Yeah.
even with my sister and my brother, and for us to be able to have those conversations in quite an open manner, quite a, like, what do you guys think about it, but it's a shared discussion, as opposed to within an ethnic household going, no, 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 let's not talk about that. We don't want to open
Yeah.
this can right here. And it's not necessarily because it's bad, but it's just that sort of uncertainty of what's going to come up within
Yeah.
that.
Definitely.
Yeah. And that sort of
Yeah.
the consequence of it is
Yeah.
brought up.
and I think like once we kind of like eventually everyone breaks that stigma of let's have these conversations, like it's gonna be a tough gig to get to that stage, but like I think we're kind of breaking a lot of barriers down by having more open conversations about things, because yeah, it's just what's the point of stigmatizing so many things and then an
Yeah,
issue arises from it. So um,
that's
with
right.
the mental health, the less we kind of stigmatize it, I think the more understanding we'll have around it, because everyone's mental health is so different. It's so broad. Um, so yeah,
That's right. And Shane, my other question was when you said that mental health was brought more to light, yeah, in 2018, or sort of when you were 28 and you
yeah,
started becoming more aware of it, and you said that you felt like you weren't alone. Did you
yeah.
have more conversations with your friends and support network?
Yes,
What's that like?
yeah. So I definitely started to talk to a lot more friends about it.
Yeah,
I guess I was a bit more choosy with who I was, choosy who I'm talking to about it. Where
yeah,
now I will literally just talk to anybody about it. Um, so I didn't talk to family about it just because didn't really think they would understand.
hmm,
I guess there's been a lot of people that have surprised me, I guess, with their when I have told them, and they've really kind of understood and really kind of supported me through that. Um, so when I first started, yeah, it was only a couple of friends that I told. Um, but yeah, now that I when I talk to people about it, just in general convo, it's amazing how much support we have as humans. Actually, even people that we don't really think we're that close to. Um, yeah, people, and to get like so many different kind of views on things, and like even to actually like know that other people have had kind of similar issues or had their own journey themselves. Really, it's all a learning experience. Like I've got a good mate that I talk to about my mental health quite often, and like we've got very different mental health issues,
yeah,
but we have learnt so much from each other. Um, and we're very much so supportive of each other. So we know, like, if there was a really horrible stage, that's the right person to go to, because they're always going to be there for you. So
yeah.
yeah,
That's so interesting. And were there any conversations that sort of stand out at a point of deep insight for yourself or a learning experience? Any
with
of those
somebody.
kind of, yeah, like those light bulb moments
Um,
kind of,
it's kind of weird. Like the last year, I've found a lot of peace in nature.
yeah,
Hence why I'm in a hammock in the garden right now. So, um, so I have a little Bichon who's here.
yeah,
Oh, he's actually asleep. Uh, but so he's been sleeping the whole time actually. So I take him to the dog park every day. And kind of it's been such a healing place. Like, I go there for self healing. Um, and just yeah, like I've had actually a lot of my convos with my close mates I've had at the dog park. We will sit there for hours and we'll just talk, and I'll talk about my mental health. I could talk about really anything up there.
yeah,
Um, and it just feels like I'm at inner peace when I'm there. Even with art, I've actually started to start drawing on bark, um,
wow,
which is kind of a different thing for me.
yeah,
But it's very relevant to me because it's really healed me a lot. Like, as in, so by drawing on it, I feel connected to it so much.
yeah.
Um, and the pieces have come up quite nice. So
Wow.
yeah,
So, what does healing? So, you said there's been a lot of self healing. What does that
yeah.
feel like for you deep inside?
Feel like for me, well, I feel happy, which is, kind of a funny, like, we all feel happy at certain stages, but it's kind of made me realize how sad I was for a long, like in relationship wise,
Yeah.
how sad I was, and kind of picking comfort over happiness. So that's like probably one of my biggest learning takes from my previous relationship, that, like there's a stage where you can get comfortable, but you're not necessarily happy. Um,
Correct.
and a lot of us put happiness aside.
Yeah.
And that's what happened to me. Like, as in, I didn't really realize I was that sad.
Mm.
So yeah, so to me, healing is actually feeling happy, really, being happy with myself.
Yeah. That's so, and that's so interesting, right? Like when you feel a certain emotion, or you feel it for not the very first time, but in a long time or something, then you realize the other end of it and go,
Yeah,
wow, if that was like the constant for you, then it's almost at a high threshold, isn't it? Like
yeah,
that's
yeah,
sad feeling, or that's what you were used to. And so it just kept upping, or
yeah. Well, happiness is, it's so funny. It's such a simple thing. You would think that it's the simplest thing to do, but it's actually
but
kind
it
of hard.
exactly. And yeah,
Yeah,
that's such an interesting sort of perspective. Is it that simple, or is it, it's because it's momentary as well. It's not,
yeah,
that's the thing, like day to day, hour to hour, it's quite, it can be quite different.
yeah, definitely,
um
definitely.
Tell us about your art piece on that piece of
On the
bark.
bark, yeah. So I do surrealist portraiture, and it's called currently, I don't actually really know the style. It's between installation, graffiti, or illustration. So the bark pieces I am drawing, they're kind of like flowers. So I'm drawing, um yeah, they're kind of like a traditional twist on a flower kind of thing. So I actually just framed one recently, and it's come out really nice actually. Um, yeah, so kind of just dark's just totally different, because you kind of have to take dry it out a bit and pick the right piece, because it has to have the right shape. But it's just very interesting to draw on, because I've never really drawn on it before. So
And what was going through your mind as you were drawing and as you were creating?
um, I actually don't even remember. It kind of, when I draw, I don't really think. It just kind of happens, really. Um, I guess if I had a feeling around it, it was when I'd finished it. I I can't say that I'm always proud of my work. Like, I don't sit there and be like, I'm really proud of that piece. But
Yeah.
with this bark piece, it was, I have kept it up. I actually don't even want to sell it. Like, that's how much I actually really love it. So it has quite a, yeah, deep um feeling for me, really. Kind of, I look at it and I kind of remember, I actually even remember exactly where I got the bark. So the fact where so it had this piece of bark's had its own journey, really, because I remember the walk, I remember where I got it from. And I hope all my other, like, I've only done two,
Yeah.
and I hope to do a couple more this year.
Hmm.
Um, but yeah, I hope to kind of keep that journey where I remember the exact moment where I got that piece of bark. And bark's everywhere, but you know, to find that perfect piece is
That's right. Yes,
hard.
yes, exactly. And I can just imagine how special it would be to
Yeah, definitely.
get that piece and the journey in, yeah, that sort of getting to it, actually getting it, doing something with it, like that in itself is such a narrative. Um,
Yeah, definitely.
its own. And it's so interesting how you're talking about you don't necessarily feel. And I was talking to one of my other friends who's also is an artist, and
Yeah.
some of her paintings are like really colorful and vibrant, actually a lot
Okay.
of them. And one day I was asking her, what do you feel like, what are some of the things that go through your brain when you are doing such paintings? And I was actually really surprised when she said, sometimes there are really heavy emotions. The piece can be
Yeah.
and vibrant and appear to be quite like, you're happy, someone might be happy when they're painting it, but in fact it could be very heavy emotions that they're processing and things like that, but still have a lot
Yeah.
of color within that. And I was,
That's true. Yeah.
yeah, I was really quite so surprise probably isn't the right word, but that particular response was very interesting to go
Yeah, definitely. That
through. Yeah, it was.
because art's kind of can be quite dark, as in like, yeah, art is very, you're drawing like, so with me, I don't think when I'm drawing, but so I do think before I draw. So I don't draw every day, but if I'm kind of in a I guess not in a great space, my
Yeah,
work will be a lot different to when I'm in a good space. So I don't tend to draw a lot when I'm in a bad space, but mainly when I'm in a good headspace. Um, but I do a lot of pre-planning, so that comes into it as well. So
yeah, that is
yeah.
so interesting. And I'd like to ask you more about your art, Shane. You said
Hmm.
you started drawing when you were 15 or 16. And
Yep.
what got you to start drawing at that particular age, and how has you,
Um,
yeah.
so it really just, well, I just started to draw when I was in high school. So I've always kind of had a creative side to me.
Yeah.
I guess there was when I was, yeah, 16, I just started to draw pieces and my teachers really liked it. So that kind of started that flow and encouragement. I guess I never really got that kind of encouragement from a teacher before. So it was kind of, I guess, an excess thing.
Yeah.
And it really kind of just continued to go. So I've drawn a lot. So back then I was doing a lot of charcoal pieces, so a lot of portraiture.
Wow.
And even starting to work in disability, I started to draw some of my clients.
Yeah.
So I drew about 3 or 4 clients with Down syndrome, which
Yeah.
I think that was probably my most difficult pieces actually, because it's hard to draw. Like you can, you know, people with Down syndrome are quite distinctive, but to actually draw them is actually very hard,
Yeah.
because yeah, it's just hard to draw something different or somebody different. Um, so, and I actually gave, so with those clients that I drew, I actually gave them the artwork at the end free of cost. And to know that it went to them and they really loved it. I've got videos on my phone of them receiving it and they have the big smiles and the big thank yous. It kind of makes, well, it melts my heart. But it's just nice knowing that it's appreciated and it's going to be taken care of. Um, yeah, and to be honest with you, working in disability in itself has really changed my life.
Yeah.
It's kind of, I feel like life for me has always been about acceptance, and like I know the last couple of years have been a lot more about self acceptance, but I think without working in disability, I wouldn't have got to that stage because they were probably one of the first group of people that really kind of truly accepted me for who I was. Um, yeah, so
Wow. So, Shane, what does acceptance mean to you?
just kind of where I can be myself
Yeah.
and I can be in your presence.
Yeah.
No judgment, no trying to change who I am, vice versa. I'm not going to change who you are.
Yeah.
That is acceptance to me.
Yeah.
I don't know. I might have been not great at picking out the people in my life previously, but um, it took me a long time to figure that out. So yeah.
Wow. And so, with your work as a disability support worker, what
Yep.
does that entail? That's part one of the question.
Yep.
And in addition to acceptance, what about that work changed your life?
Okay. So in accommodation, so that means I work in their home, so it's a residential setting. So I've been in the sector for 8 years, and I've been in accommodation for most of the time. I think I've tried some day service stuff for a small amount of time. So what that entails is currently I really just support the clients to achieve their goals and kind of their household chores and prompts around doing chores. So the clients are very independent. I guess a cool story from last year is I had a client that wanted to ride his bike to work, and he hadn't rode in years. So we started doing the little assessments and, got him a bike. And we did a lot of work the last year. It took us about 6 months, I think, to build his skills enough to ride to work independently. And he achieved that goal, and the company did a video around it and everything like that, which was a really great feat. So a lot of my support is around kind of independence building. And in a weird way, by supporting the clients with independence, it's kind of made me independent as well. So because it's kind of working with the clients, so they all have goals. But I guess as personally, we don't really set. I'd never really set goals, kind of, and it's not just financial goals, but just goals like I want to, I don't know, skydive tomorrow or this year. We just kind of do that spontaneously, kind of thing. Where I've figured out that goal setting is actually a really good thing, and any goal is really possible if you're willing to put the work into. So
So is that one way that's actually changed your life, is the idea or the notion of goal setting and what it's done for you?
Well, yeah, it's definitely made me a lot more aware of being able to have targets, and it's a good thing to have a target, even if it's unrealistic. At least you've kind of put it there and you've made steps to get in there, because not everything's achievable. It's just, I guess, about the journey of getting to that goal, and if you don't achieve it, then at least you've put the steps in to get there. So
that is fantastic. And the other question I wanted to ask you is, Shane, before we do wrap up, has there been anything that you've wanted to say or that you prepared before this conversation that I haven't actually touched upon or considered during my questioning?
I think it's been a really good convo. I don't think there's anything we haven't touched. I guess the only thing I could really touch on is the last year. So back to the whole reading thing, as in a weird way, I've had a lot of self-reflection time, and the last year I've done a lot more self-reflective writing. So I found a real great outlet in just writing little one-liner things. And it's I read back on my little book the other day, and it's kind of amazing what journey I've been on mentally, because you don't really realize it. You can kind of reflect back on things mentally, but then when you've written it down in a journal, or if you've written down it in a little book, and then you go back and you've read some of your previous notes, you kind of realize where your head was at and what space you were at. So I guess that's a cool little creative outlet I've figured out as well. So, but other than that, Artie, I think we've covered everything.
That's amazing. Oh, well, I've had such an enjoyable time listening to you, but then not only just listening to you, reflecting on my experiences, but like you said at some point in the conversation, we are actually more similar than we're different. And we think that we're alone. Are we really alone in a journey? There are lots of people that are
definitely
very similar not the same situation, but yeah, similar threads.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely.
3 to 5 key takeaways for anybody in the world listening to this conversation.
Yep, I did write some down actually. So where did I put them is the question. So my key takeaways would be, sorry, I'm just reading it. I guess don't be scared to be yourself. That was one of them. Encouraging people to just talk about your mental health, especially the young men out there. I think there's a little bit of a stigma around it still. We're getting a lot better with it, but yeah, the younger men out there, it'd just be great for them to just speak up, and it's okay to speak up, kind of thing.
Yeah.
Be considerate of others, because a lot of the time we get caught in the moment. We might not know the person, but sometimes we kind of don't understand other people's situations enough. And yeah, so be considerate of others. And I guess a thing that I've always lived by is, I think Robin Williams said it years ago, and it was a quote. He said, "Be kind always," and I've always kind of lived by that. It's such a simple thing to do. Well, you'd think it's a simple thing to do, but it's so simple to action. So I've really tried to live by that kind of motto. So yeah.
That is so. And this is a question I actually haven't, I don't think I've asked this before, but have people acted in a way or done something for you that's actually that's created one of those buffers? We were talking about buffers before. Have they done any?
Yep.
Yeah.
As in, so like, as in it wasn't received well, kind of thing.
No. So say for you, it like you received it well, you needed it at that point.
Yep.
What are some of those things people have done? Or
to actually help out?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I guess just having the presence of someone, like being able to, message a friend or call a friend and say, hey, you want to come over, or go for a dog walk. That's basically my invite these days. Want to meet me at the dog park? I think just having the person's presence, because I think especially with the lockdowns, we've forgotten about people's presence, because we're so used to Zooms and we're so used to video chats, but actually having someone physically there to talk to is just, I can't even explain it. It's just even random. The dog park, I've met quite a few friends at the dog park. I'm not great at making friends in general, so the fact that I've made friends and Gus has made friends is an amazing journey in itself. So yeah.
That's awesome. No, thank you so much, Shane, for sharing your chapter and narrative so openly and generously. I really do
for the convo.
And
that's all right.
For anyone that's listening, please share this conversation with people that may connect, or just, there are so many different points and parts to it that people could resonate with. And I will be tagging your Instagram as well, Shane. So
awesome. Thanks, Artie.
Artwork. It's so cool. I really, really love it.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, guys. And I'll stop recording.